Let's talk about goalies because goalies are the foundation to an NHL team. And after last night's performance in the Stanley Cup Finals, Bob was incredible, but it also made me think of how great we have it with Jordan Binnington. I'm going to talk about this coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode of Locked On Blues, I will be comparing goalies between Bobrovsky and Binnington. I will also be talking about leadership because I think it's time that we finally have an honest conversation. And we need an aggressor, right? Well, what's next for the St. Louis Blues? I will dive into that as well. But before I get deeper into today's episode, I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hello, I hope everybody is having a happy Tuesday. It is June 11th. Make note of that, June 11th, which means tomorrow is going to be a very special extravaganza on Locked On Blues. But anyways, last night was game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Panthers won 4-1, now giving them a 2-0 lead in the series. Why am I bringing this up? Because one thing about me, and I talked about this before, is I really enjoy comparing good teams with teams that need improvement, aka our team. Yes, I am talking about the Blues. Whenever I'm watching a game that doesn't involve St. Louis, I'm always thinking about, if the team, aka the Blues, are similar to that team. And this team right now being the Florida Panthers. I compare the two teams, and I did talk about how I felt like the Blues kind of resonated more with the Panthers than they did with the Oilers. But a position in particular is the goalie. And Bobrovsky has been absolutely lights out with his saves. I mean, these saves have been incredible. Some of the most, athletic saves I've seen in a very long time. And, between the two games, he's only let in one goal, which is phenomenal. But it makes me think about how good a goalie is in a sense of how they really do determine the team's overall success. And then I think about Jordan Binnington, and I think about what he has done for the Blues and how great of a goalie he truly is. When I'm watching Bob last night, you know, I see positioning, I see defensive reactions that honestly reminded me a lot of Binnington with his positioning in net. And I am not saying in any single way that these two goalies are the same because they're not completely different. But it does make me, kind of realize if I were to rank goalies in the NHL, Binner would be a top 5 goalie. Now, you could make the case that Binnington probably, you know what? I'm going to say it. Binnington is the best goalie that didn't play in the playoffs this season, flat out. No question in my mind. His skill set is phenomenal. And I really do believe that if it wasn't for Binner, the team would have been really poor, like really poor this season. I know no playoffs. I know it doesn't matter in terms of, it is what it is. But if Binner wasn't in net, then this season would have been even worse. So he kind of almost got us into the playoffs. But again, it is a team sport. But when you look at the finals, for instance, and, we can compare and contrast about when we were in the finals because, again, we did have Binner. So you can kind of do that. The goalie is the big talking point. And while that is true in the entire playoff run, especially the finals, it's the goalie. It is the goalie show. It is who can make the best and most important saves. And that's the team that usually ends up being successful. In our series against the Bruins, we went against Rask. And, he did good. And there's no denying that. But Benner was lights out. And some of the saves that he had made in that series were insanity. And I just want you to take a moment right now and think back to our playoff run or our cup run, I should say, because we went to the playoffs the next year and lost in the first round. But think back to our cup run and just think about who was the superstar. It was Benner, no doubt at all. And I think that's what you're seeing out of Bobrovsky is that you're seeing him be the superstar. When you look at the Edmonton Oilers, Skinner isn't the superstar, and that's okay. Obviously, when you have like a Connor McDavid on your team, you're not going to be the superstar. But in Dallas, who do they talk about the most? Jake Ottinger, superstar. Rangers, Shosturkin. It's always the goalie for the most part that gets talked about the most because they're the most important player on that team. During the regular season, I feel like goalies don't get as much credit, and that is something that always has bothered me because I've always been a big advocate for, really respecting the goalies. And, even with a Joel Hofer, right? Do I think he's ready to be in the playoffs? No. Do I think he can get there? Yes, I really do. I think that he is in a position right now where if he continues to develop, continues to play the way that he's been playing, there is no doubt in my mind that he could become our goalie or starting goalie one day because I don't want to see Benner leave, but obviously, there's a contract and there's also the age factor, but there's plenty of time. But the reason why I bring this up right now is because when I'm comparing these two goalies, I do see similarities between Bob and Benner, and I want you to tell me, did you see those similarities as well? Some of the saves that he was making, um, it just reminded me a lot of how Benner's style is. Very aggressive in the crease, and that is something that I love seeing out of Benner. But again, I need Jordan Binnington to get back into the playoffs so we can see this out of him again. It's been 2 seasons now not being in the playoffs, and I know that, he played in Worlds, and I understand that that could be like a playoff kind of, I guess, scenario. Like, it's not the same as NHL playoffs or the 7-game series, obviously, but I guess it's like a good atmosphere. But I want him because I really do care about Benner, and Binnington has been such, a huge asset to the St. Louis Blues. And I want him to get that playoff experience again. I want him to be able to show everybody in the NHL what he's capable of. I mean, your rookie season winning a cup is a huge accomplishment, and don't get me wrong, but it's also about longevity. And I feel like here's the thing. Bobrovsky obviously has yet to win a cup, right? Um, and right now with the Panthers, I mean, they're 2 wins away from winning a cup. So, I mean, that's really cool. But at the same time, Benner needs to continuously prove that he is capable of doing this. And I really do believe that he can do this. I mean, if you look at Bob's career, right? And it's insane 700 games played, okay? He was at the Flyers for a couple seasons with Columbus and then obviously with the Panthers. Well, with Columbus, we all know you're not going to be winning a cup. So that's out of the question. So this is his opportunity to do so. And I feel like if you win a cup in the NHL, especially as a goalie, you get looked at as a different kind of manner because it's first off very difficult to do. So I think like with the Golden Knights, a lot of people have a respect for Aiden Hill because of the situation that he was put in. But for a rookie goalie to win a cup and then to be on a team that's been struggling ever since, people don't show the respect that they do for these other players that have started off on bad teams and then won a cup, if that makes sense. So I do believe when comparing these two goalies, Benner is in a different situation because he's already hoisted the cup. Okay. He's already and forever a Stanley Cup champion. However, because the Blues didn't have much success after that cup win, there is an ounce of disrespect that I can feel coming from other people in the league. Um, because of that to him, even though he is one of the most elite goalies in the NHL. So take that for how it is. Think about that because I personally feel disrespected as a fan, and I cannot imagine how it feels to be disrespected as a player. But I doubt also these players, listen to what some of these media people say and things like that. But sometimes seeing it, I'm just like, it gets like a bad taste in my mouth. All right, I'm going to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And I told you to bet on Panthers money line. And many of you did. And I am super proud of you because that means that you listened to me. But again, it is a series, right? You have to play 2 games in Edmonton. And I originally I said Panthers in 6. It might be 5, but it's not going to be a sweep. I highly doubt it's going to be a sweep. So just bet straight up money line. Don't do Panthers in 4, Panthers in 5, Panthers in 6, because I really do think it is going to be nothing but it's not going to be a sweep. So I don't know, but just be smart with how you bet. Okay. So let's talk about something really fun. Um, and that is the Blues' leadership. Because right now, I really do need to talk about the leadership on the St. Louis Blues more in depth because I do think it's really important to do so. So here's the thing. We all know after, O'Reilly, there was no captain last season, which kind of sucked, right? But here's the thing too, it allowed the Blues fans to really enjoy last year's offseason with all the possibilities of, who will be captain. And it was really fun, honestly. I think that, at the end of the day, there is just so much, right, that you can think of when it comes to, the leadership, right? You can think of, what ifs, what if nots, all of that, right? So it was really fun. But anywho's, when besides Braden Shen being named, right? Also wearing the A, you had Robert Thomas, Justin Folk, and Colton Parayko. And I think this was a really solid core. Do I see this changing this upcoming season? No, I don't. Unless obviously there's a trade and Parayko or Folk go, Robert Thomas won't go. Then yeah, there would be a possibility. But I do feel like the Blues have a really good leadership core, and I am happy with it. And the thing about Robert Thomas too is that he just is such a good team player, right? And that's something about RT that I've talked about a lot is how he does make the other guys on the ice look really good. And I like that out of him. I think that at the end of the day, he is what you think of when you think of an ultimate leader. I don't know how he is in the locker room, right? I've only been in the locker room once with the guys. But what I can say is that he is a really well-respected player. I mean, you watch his end of the season interview that he did, and nothing but humble and nothing but positive about his teammates. And that's the thing about Robert Thomas is that you can see that leadership that he has off the ice, on the ice. His playmaking skills, his communication with his teammates and line mates, especially all of the above, he really does execute what a leader is. Do I think he will be captain of the Blues one day? Yes. And I've said that before, so I'm going to say it again. Yes, I do think that. But I do still believe that Captain Braden Shen has years left. And there is no need to replace him as the captain. He earned it. And you know what? And I was thinking about this too today, which is why I wanted to bring this up. The loudest guy in the room or the best player on the ice doesn't have to be captain. Obviously, your captain does need to be on the ice a good amount just because of how it works in today's NHL, but it also could be the guy that's the most well respected. It could be the guy that has been here and he knows the game inside and out. He knows how to fire up a team. He knows the backhand of everything. He knows it all. And that's what Captain Braden Shen is. And Thomas, and I understand, you know, he's not a baby in hockey life, right? But he's still young. He still has some stuff to learn, and it's not a bad thing at all. It just means that whenever the time is ready, he could potentially be the captain one day. And when, hypothetically, when Thomas is captain one day, like I could see a guy like a Jake Neighbors wearing the A, which is giving me chills to think about. Like, it is just gonna be so cool being able to watch these guys continue to develop, right? So that is something that I really love. And then you have Jay Folk, who has been around, right? Such a solid defenseman. And here's the thing with the blue line, he brings the stability and he just has such good qualities that helps these young players, right? So again, I don't see that being taken away from him. And then of course you have Colton Parayko, who is everything, right? Parayko has been here. Needless to say, he's probably the best defender on this team. And again, another stable, very stable piece. Not a staple, but a stable, meaning he brings stability to the Blues. So I am happy with the Blues' leadership. I can't think at the moment if there's anybody else deserving of a letter in any sense. Obviously, goalies can't have letters, so it is what it is. But other than that, I think the Blues core leadership is really good and really solid and really strong. So I want you to tell me, hey, Hale, I kind of would rather have this person have an A and explain why in the comments. Because I usually always have something that I can disagree with. I'm like, oh, well, this player deserves it. For once, and I think the first time ever, I'm like, I'm good with this. This was a decision that I'm completely good with. And the thing with leadership too is that it's always changing, right? Um, Obviously the leadership from when we won the cup did change, but I feel like this leadership is going to bring us success in the coming season. I do. But again, like if something happens this offseason and someone's traded, we're going to have that conversation. Now, I did think of one player, and I don't know if you're going to like what I'm going to say, but I feel like Cairo could be kind of in the talks about getting an A if something were to happen to somebody. But again, hypothetical. But other than that, like I really can't think of another player at all. It's something against our players. It's just I can't think of a guy that is deserving of a letter. And I think that just goes to show that maybe the Blues do need some more guys to step it up a little bit. Maybe a Tory Kurt. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. That was a joke. I was joking. Do not listen to that. I always forget whenever I mention him, people take it literally sometimes. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like that was a joke. But Cairo, other than that, nobody else. Yeah. So the Blues definitely need some guys to step it up or they need to get some bigger names because usually on other teams, like you can list off a couple players that are deserving of letters that don't have it. With the Blues, it's like, I can't think of anybody, which is not like me. Maybe a Buchnevich. Maybe. I don't know. Because I don't think he's the best locker room guy, but I don't know how he really is, but just from what I've seen. Yeah, this is a tough one, St. Louis. All right. Before I talk about what I think the Blues might need, I just want to say again, subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Locked on Blues. It helps out tremendously, St. Louis. And honestly, I love the community that we have built on YouTube. I love talking to you on Twitter at Locked on Blues and so much more. Obviously, I do my best to reply to everybody. So again, make sure to hit that subscribe button, join the conversation, always talking St. Louis Blues hockey which is my favorite thing to talk about every single day, Monday through Friday. So, again, join that conversation. What do the Blues need? Now, an aggressor, maybe. Here's the thing. I'm watching the finals last night, right? Florida, Edmonton, only, NHL hockey that we have on. So it is what it is. And I see a guy like a Matthew Tkachuk. And I know Matthew's not coming to St. Louis. I know that. I am very well aware that Matthew Tkachuk will never be a St. Louis Blue. Probably not. But I'm aware of that. But I'm like, oh, I want that. I want that type of player that isn't afraid to be aggressive. I see a guy like a Brad Marchand on the Bruins, and I know that we hate the Bruins, but I'm like, still, he fires people up. Now, we're not going to have players lick other people because that's disgusting, but still, he fires people up. You have Kane, who kind of does that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have these different players in the league that are very aggressive and that can fire people up. And then I think to myself, hell, who do we have? And I'm like, oh, no one. Like, think about it. A lot of these NHL teams these days, they have a player like New York has, Matt Rempe, who just, and I know, comes on to fight, but it fires up the team. It fires up the fans if they're at home. And I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea. Usually these guys are very cheap to get. I mean, not Kachuk, for instance, but like Rempe, but usually the guys are cheaper to get just because their literal job is going on the ice and like fighting. But is that a bad idea for the Blues to try to do that this offseason? Or do you think that the Blues just need to focus on skill set? Now, personally, I think if the money isn't bad, right? And you're getting a guy for the low, why not? Why not do this? It's going to help improve the team in many ways. I am thinking about what is best for the Blues, and I want people to understand this that are not Blues fans. I want them to get ready to play the St. Louis Blues and be a little bit afraid. I feel like this season, a lot of teams that wanted to play the Blues, they all went in. I saw all the Locked On podcasts from other hosts. They all went in not being worried at all. I saw it, okay? And it bothered me, but were they wrong? No, because the Blues were not a team that you should have been that afraid of, to be honest. I want other opponents to say, oh, we're playing the St. Louis Blues. We need to bring our A game tonight. Not, oh, we're playing the Blues. It's fine. No, it is not. And I think that the Blues need to get more aggressive. I really do. I think the checks harder. Everything needs to be more aggressive. I thought I saw some lackadaisical hockey this past season from St. Louis, and I did not like it. While this was like one of the first seasons that Binner didn't even react in net and get physical with anybody, I was really proud of that. I also wanted our guys to get physical too. I know Shen had a fight, but it's still like nobody looked at the Blues and thought, oh yeah, this is an aggressive hockey team. We better watch out. I don't know. It's something that has bothered me quite a bit, honestly. And when I am brainstorming about what the Blues should do this off season, I'm like, maybe that's not a bad piece to go after. So in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blues, obviously it's going to be about one thing only. We want Blues Day. Oh, it makes me fine. We will get into that tomorrow. But on Thursday's episode, I will be talking about some potential candidates that I like that the Blues could get that are a little bit more aggressive players. So tomorrow's episode will be live. I will be posting the time on Twitter during the day tomorrow. Cannot believe it's been 5 years, which is insane. So I will talk to you for a very special episode for our 5-year anniversary of We Want Blues Day. And until then, let's go Blues.